Would you be able to explain what infinity loop, especially in financial services, mean?
Sometimes it's called the patching loop. Basically, it's a trap that many financial institutions, banks, insurance companies, etc., fall into. And this loop or this cycle is a cycle of focusing on fixing problems, patching.
What innovative opportunities are being missed when companies are consistently in firefighting mode with their data?
It prevents real innovation. That's the main cost of this. Yes, they're spending money on failed AI projects and failed related projects. But the real thing is, here's where they are trying to innovate.
Welcome to the Don't Panic, It's Just Data podcast, where we have a weekly conversation with people impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Shubhangi Dua, the podcast host and producer at EM360 Tech. This episode, joining us is Errol Rodericks, the product and solutions marketing and sales enablement specialist at Denodo. And we will be talking about how financial services can escape the infinity loop of reactive data patching to unlock real, measurable outcomes with AI and data products. Particularly, this will focus on data delivery, governance, and navigating the Gen AI future, especially considering that over 80% of AI projects fail. According to Nortel, this marks twice the general failure rate of IT projects. So I'm so excited to have Errol on the podcast and to finally talk about something that's been looming for a lot of startup founders, especially, and big companies too. Hi, Errol. How are you today?
Hi, Shabu. I'm very well. I hope you are too. It's nice
Yes.
to be here.
Yes, she's so glad to have you on. And this is the second podcast, I believe, we have
Yes.
together. So, yeah. Would you be able to explain what infinity loop, especially in financial services, mean? And can you also elaborate on the true cost of being stuck in this sort of reactive mode, especially beyond the financial implications that the infinity loop we constantly refer to in the data industry?
Sure. So let's start with what is the infinity loop, or it's referred to as that often. Sometimes it's called the patching loop. But what it is, basically it's a trap that many financial institutions, banks, insurance companies, etc., fall into. And this loop or this cycle is a cycle of focusing on fixing problems, patching. Patching is an accepted term in the enterprise software area, and then redoing pipelines, data pipelines, just to keep the lights on. So, as you know, the financial sector depends very heavily on data. Now they will be depending even more so on AI to help them get ahead of the game. And in order to keep that going, they need to keep fixing any lack of data access or any missing data that they lose connection to. Call them data pipelines just to keep the lights on. Leave alone, forget about going ahead. Now, going ahead means every new, I don't know, initiative within the bank or the insurance company, like compliance. Compliance is on the rise, especially on the sustainability side, or any other demands related to AI, because all these are very heavily linked to AI. They need reactive data handling. And so this need to stay in this loop just to keep that alive. Like I said, forget about completing the end goal, which we'll come to. But the real cost to them at the moment is missed insights, customer churn. They lose customers to some of the new financial institutions who have this down pat. And so not only do they miss insights, they have customer churn. And most importantly, now in this competitive market, they have delayed innovation. They can't innovate, not until they fix this problem. And that eventually, all of that leads to reputational risk. So, that's the real impact. I mean, the cost of poor data isn't just bad decisions, it's the decisions you never knew you could make. You never get around to that. So, I hope that gives a view on the infinity loop and its impact.
Can I also ask, what is the agenda we are setting for this podcast? What is the end message that you're trying to get across?
Well, there's two main things that they need to understand out there. Number one is breaking out of this infinity loop and making sure the real goal is success, real success in AI-led initiatives that are related to the business, not just to IT and data, because those are sort of halfway house targets. But in order to get to that success, they need to cross what we call the last mile. They're getting this far with what they've currently got. They're in that patching loop, and then they never make it to the end. And we want them to understand that there's a better way. There's a better way to get to that end. That last mile is where Denodo really shines. Denodo, who I work for. So that's the main message: crossing that last mile, breaking out of the infinity loop to cross that last mile. And while doing that, there's a strong temptation to try and resist what we call the data tide. And so surfing that data tide is important. You don't need to resist it. In English history or folklore, there was a king who tried to stop the ocean called King Canute. He ended up drowning all his people, so they say. But we're saying don't try and resist the data tide, ride it. And that's where we come in.
I can see the benefits of that. It's very ambitious. So my next question to you would be, what innovative opportunities are being missed when companies are consistently in firefighting mode with their data?
Interesting. So let's call this firefighting mode dealing with this infinity loop we just talked about. What it does, as I said earlier, it prevents real innovation. That's the main cost of this. Yes, they're spending money on failed AI projects and failed related projects. But the real thing is, here's where they are trying to innovate. Let's give you some examples. They want real-time fraud detection. If you get to just a percentage of the data that you need, you might not even know what you're missing, okay, until it's too late, until the AI project has failed. And your real-time fraud detection is not as good as some of your competition. Because remember, as a bank, as a financial institution, you're not compared to being better than what you were before. You're compared to the best. Every time they actually look at you, you're compared to the best. They don't say, how much better have you got since the last time you actually embarked on this? They say, did you know that X, Y, and Z can do this? You must be as good at that as that at least. So real-time fraud detection. Then this ESG wave that's hit Europe, it's hit the globe, and it's hit the globe in different ways. But ESG, environmental, the sustainability side of that, the social, the general, people think that's not important. But getting insights into that, if you fail to get that, if you fail to develop a framework for automatically being compliant, and as you know, in Europe now, CSRD has made it mandatory. Um, you know, that in itself leads to failed audits, you get penalized. So by simply getting caught up and keeping up with the SG, that's another failed innovative task. The big one now hitting banks and to some degree insurance is personalization. Knowing what your customers want before even they know what they want and knowing what's possible, but taking that one step further, knowing why they want it. So the behavioral science side of it, knowing why they want these things. Again, all these innovative new projects will fail if they don't deal with this last mile, with this patching loop, this infinity loop. So it's impossible basically to innovate when trust in your data is optional. It shouldn't be optional.
I agree with you. And also, I feel like enterprises of all sizes, especially startups, they fail to they fail to recognize that if you keep up with the ESG regulations and compliance, and if you're mindful of these new changes that are coming into the play, it actually helps you maintain your data quality better, which in turn will improve your product. They fail to see sight of that, and it amazes me how people just overlook it.
And just want to brush it aside. Yes, you're absolutely right. They're just charging forward without actually addressing this. Good. No, I agree.
In the previous episode, you mentioned that Gen AI projects often fail, and you have mentioned that in the first part of our podcast here as well. Not just because of models themselves, but also due to unreliable inputs, unreliable data fails data quality, and an architecture built on patches. How does Denodo's approach to providing AI ready data specifically address these architectural shortcomings? What are the key characteristics of data that make it truly AI ready?
Okay, so yeah, I'll reiterate, Gen AI projects are failing. And let's start with your definition of failure. Okay, so that'll give you a clue as to why it's failing and where data comes in and what we can do to help. So Gen AI projects success means this. Success means that somewhere in business land, in operations land, not just in IT and data land, but beyond, they have failed to adopt any of these initiatives as their own. So that means that initiative has failed. It's failed even if the data chief architect says it's great. We've got all the data, we've got a good model, we've got the ability to run AI projects. The fact is they're failing because the business is not adopting them. So if you get a CFO, let's take my favorite type of CFO, a cranky CFO. So a cranky CFO is one that is skeptical of anything that's offered to her or to him that says this will better your life. And so if one of those CFOs fails to adopt, let's say, a risk dashboard, so they need a risk dashboard, they need a dashboard that helps them budget and plan and forecast. Those are their dashboards. If they say what's coming out of this project is not that, or I don't know how I'd use it, then they have considered that project to be a failure. Now, let me explain what those dashboards mean to the data architects. They are called data products. So a financial risk dashboard is a data product. A framework for ESG compliance is a data product. All these are data products. So these projects fail not due to just bad inputs or bad data, but also missing data. Okay, so those are the two things. What they don't fail on is the models. The AI models are pretty good, actually. We're going from strength to strength in that space. And all the Gen AI vendors, they're producing more models than you can shake a stick at, sort of thing. So there's no shortage of models. But, when it comes to not just the bad data, meaning bad data as data that's wrong or not up to date or not timely, therefore not reliable, but also that missing mile of data, the thing that most lake houses and central architecture say we've got that covered, but they haven't got it covered because there's this small percentage, not that small, 30% of the data that they need, and sometimes are not even aware they need, is missing. It's coming at them at high speed. The sources are doubling, so that where this data is coming from, the volume is doubling, and they're busy saying, no, we don't need that. Never heard of that. We think it's okay. So that missing data, along with bad data or untrustworthy data, is the real reason most of these AI projects are failing. And AI ready data basically it's got a very simple definition. Number one, it's trusted. Okay, so can we rely on the fact that this data is coming from the true source? The insights are reliable as to how we use this data, and can it be used in a compliant way? So that's number one, trusted. Second, the really important one again, timely. There's no point getting data after its shelf life has expired, and many important sources of data only have about 70 hours. The missing bits, 70 hours in which you have to respond. So if it's not there in 70 hours, it doesn't matter if the biggest, I don't know, data lakehouse gets it eventually or loads it and transforms it and does everything they do to it. Too late. Too little, too late. So in that case, the timeliness is very important.
I'm
Now,
so sorry to
as,
interrupt you, but how
yeah,
quickly do you have to react to be able to ensure that the shelf life doesn't expire and you're just getting that data in and then processing it faster?
imagine that you need data on you detect fraud or you are assigning uh, uh, risk to an insurance claim, or outside of the world of finances, a plane is about to land and it needs real contextual live data that you don't have, which might be Gulf streams that aren't even on your radar but are there. The information is there. So it doesn't matter where, especially when we get around to ever talking about agentic AI. Agentic AI needs this timely stuff more than anybody else because you have these agents fighting and arguing with each other. Land the plane, don't land the plane, sort of thing. Timeliness pretty important there. But in the financial world, pretty contextual. You ask the big organizations like JP Morgan, Chase, and people like that, they will tell you about the timeliness. Trust is important, but timeliness is everything. Now, when you make this data available, and the only way to make it available is through virtual access. Okay, you can't move it and start lifting and loading and doing all that into what is normally a very nice architecture, a lake house, but not reliable for this. So then you need that delta, okay, and that's where we come in. So when you access this data, you want to access it as if it were in your local warehouse, which means you understand the context and the metadata that goes behind. You understand how to use this. It's contextual. Well, here's where if you do have any kind of virtual access, meaning don't load it, access it, what you're really accessing is the context. What is this data saying to me? And what should I then do with it? And then the last one for a good set of AI ready data, because it's going into data products eventually, uh, data products are designed to be reusable. They need to be used here, there, and everywhere. It can't just be a one shot and then, oh, let's go back again and have a look. You get it, you put it into something called a data product. The data product gets owned by whoever's worried about it, and then they use it again and again for that particular instance or context. So they also have to be reformed, and the cycle, the speed with which you create these things, the speed of a data product cycle is also important. But AI ready data, trusted, timely, contextual, reusable, because it's only as smart basically as the data it feeds on. We make sure that data isn't just available, it's accountable. So that's why we.
That makes sense to me. There's just one thing in very simple terms. When it comes to financial institutions, the data here is not just linguistic, it's more numerical. And we know it's an established fact that Gen AI is not really great with numerics, not yet at least. So how is it that the data is verified within this sector, and how do you ensure that quality with that timeliness?
So imagine that you have a platform that's well versed in numerical data. They know what to do with numerical data. They don't just need the context from a semantic layer, they also just need access. So, of course, that's the bread and butter of Denodo. We give them access to the numerical data. They then do their magic. Okay, that's where the lake houses and all come in. Can we cross check this with this? And an interesting point, the this that they need to cross check it with may also be remote. So they say, I need this data now. I need to know if it's correct, complete, the scope is right, etc. I need to check it with these 5 other different types of data source. Denodo, that's bread and butter. Yeah, sure, you got access to all of them. What don't you have? Just tell us what you don't have, and we'll give it to you. You can access it as if it were in your own backyard. So that's how the basics of numerical data are handled. We always say, you need the lake houses. Of course, you need the lake houses. You need that. So that's where we hand over the data. But like I said, when it comes to non-numerical or what they call multimodal data, unstructured data, that's where it gets a little tougher, and that's where Denodo's other strength comes in, which says, I'm not going to give you all that data because I'm not going to give you everything on social media and whatever it is. I'm going to give you insights into it and contextual insights. And that's the strength of that sort of platform, that it not only delivers numerical to anybody who needs to cross-check data and make sure that it's correct, but also the non-numerical. Okay, if that's a word, non-numerical. Yeah. unstructured.
To follow up on the data products, why is moving from bronze to gold data products a strategic journey rather than just a technical one for financial institutions?
Okay, it's actually the height of our presentations normally out there to say not everything's a gold standard. Doesn't have to be a gold standard everything. So bronze data products give you the basics, raw data. You need access, like the one you just said. It's numerical. We know what to do with it. Why would we rely on you to tell us what to do with it? Well, the simple fact is you don't have access to it. You don't have timely access to it. So bronze data will give you just that, raw data from which you can do what you normally do. As you go up, your use cases go up. So when you say now, not only do I need the data, but I need to know a little bit more about it because we're planning an expansion into the Far East, and we're a bank, and we need to know what's going to impact us, what's going to come our way, what are your impressions. Well, that's a silver data product. That's where you have an enriched data set. You have a lot of contextual stuff added on, things that you didn't think of. Well, a good planner would have thought of it, but given up on trying to access it in time. But with a silver data product, it's enriched. So the set of use cases that you can go after go up from I have access to the data to I've actually got good information on what the competition is going to do once we get there. Okay, that's a silver data product, that type of information. And who might be using that? Might be a CFO, might be a business manager, might be somebody who's forecasting, or somebody from marketing. But the silver products are there. The gold is 100% governed and trusted. It means you can bet the bank on these data products because they have a lot more than just data in them. Okay, they've got the creme de la creme of Gen AI insights embedded in them. They've got different viewpoints, so it isn't just one type of AI. They are ready to support a whole range of AI activity from Internet of Things (ML) all the way to agentic AI with Gen AI somewhere in between there. So those are the gold data products. Those are the data products that the leader of the bank, the leader of the business need. It gives them ultimate views and decision making capability in real time. And as these things come to the front, those will be what most people demand now going forward. Once they realize, okay, I get the bronze, I get the silver. Silver was good, but this gold is absolutely necessary. So you don't win with just more data, you win with better data products. And that's the thing. These are better data products. And then once you have these data products, knowing who owns them is important. Meaning, if the wrong person owns a gold data product, that gold data product's never going anywhere in that bank. It needs to be owned by somebody from the business, somebody from the operations or something.
And I always say this data quality is absolutely key. It is key. And we know that many financial institutions have already invested heavily in centralized lakehouse architectures like Snowflake or Databricks. But why are these alone not enough to deliver the trusted real time insights Gen AI and business teams need? And how does Denodo help bridge that last mile gap to make those investments pay off? We've come sort of full circle here.
Yeah. So let's start very quickly with an example, okay, of success and how this works. So this is based on true life, although the names are withheld to protect the innocent. So it's a European bank. It's a bank I know extremely well. I even did some consulting. So a European bank basically owned, meaning they had owners for data products, and they were using them to start with for onboarding and getting people on board, but also getting customers on board. Okay, fast. And the other one they used it for was anti-money laundering. Okay, so they were running into all kinds of problems. But to cut a long story short, the results they measured the results 50% faster onboarding, which is a significant thing on getting customers on board and getting employees up and running. They use it for different things. And 30% better fraud detection, which means they were losing less to fraud, which got them recognition from the country's national, sort of the main bank the bank that governs all banks in that country, they basically said this is fantastic. Your fraud detection is through the roof, 30% better than it was, and way better than all your competition. So when data products, first of all, have owners, AI has a chance. When they don't, chaos takes the lead. So how do we overcome this stale data with logical data management? Well, know that stale is a really important term here. Data gets stale really fast. And stale data leads to destroyed results because out of time and stale. So how do we ensure freshness, reliability? So with a data shelf of, in some cases, like I said, 3.3 days was the average for this particular vertical subset, copying data is too slow. So data connects to live data where it resides, delivering real-time governed information. We don't lift and shift. The minute you copy data, it already starts going stale. And Denodo keeps your business alive real time by providing direct access. And now imagine that you're on a journey and you need this Gen AI outcome. You need this delta of data. Most of this delta of data has a shelf life, maybe 70 hours, okay, 80 hours at best. It is, could be 200 sources of this type of data, growing exponentially by the day. So now there is no other way to access this data in a meaningful way except through a logical data platform like us. So that's how we help that. Real, live, relevant, trusted, governed data when you need it, all the time. And I think this is going to become a norm. This is not going to become a one-off. This is going to be the way things are. You can't wait to. And so I expect to see a lot more activity in this space. We are seeing it already.
I feel like you have captured the gap in the market very well and made a name for yourself in that space for sure. And you also emphasize that ownership and value are two pillars of data product success. Can you also provide another compelling example of a financial institution that has implemented your solution to a scale similar to the one that you just did?
Well, okay. So I have a personal view on the insurance industry needing to get a lot better. If you see how insurance is handled in various countries, including the UK here, uh, it's hit and miss half the time. Okay, it is hit and miss. If you ask the citizen on the street, what do you think is going to happen? Who knows? Okay, so you've got that point of view to start with. Then you have this ongoing battle between what we call brokers and underwriters. So the underwriters basically say, I don't know, I need more data. I need you to share a lot more about this before I can give you a view. Otherwise, no, we're not paying out. We're not doing anything there. Now, when that sort of plays into a number of issues where you have brokers and underwriters sort of clashing over shared data and all of that, that's when the need for current live data comes in strong. So fraud detection, I already mentioned, fraudulent insurance claims, the right risk associated. Because remember, these two are on the same side, really. Brokers, they want to give you, the person in the street, the best choice of insurance options. That's a broker's job. And therefore, their intent is to please you and to give you as much insurance and also to earn a living, by selling you that insurance. The underwriters, they're in the same boat. They're in the insurance bucket, but they have real. So this particular real needs for data being live and honest and open, and often this data is not shareable between the brokers because they have it, some of it, and the underwriters have a different set, and then there's a set out there that neither of them have. So you put a Denodo in the middle. You put a logical data management. First of all, we're a peace broker. We sit between the underwriters and the brokers, and we say, here's a trusted way to share data without you compromising any of your own data sources. And by the way, what both of you don't know is this. And we bring in that third source of data. So suddenly both of them are enriched. The customer gets a better, more accurate deal. The underwriters have done their job of protecting against fraudulent claims or fraudulent information. So this is real. And I don't know if you know, but many insurance practices actually started in London. With Lloyd's of London, that's where all insurers go to pay homage. And so, this was a London-based insurance company that said, "Okay, come and speak to our people because they they felt they were lagging behind." So this is a big. When I try to give you an idea, they are both commercial and personal insurance. So in case you don't know, commercial insurance is a whole different ball game because you're not insuring a person, you're insuring a business, and the personalization, the data needs are quadruple. So these people manage to get their underwriters' accuracy up. We haven't got the final figures, but it is up in the high tens of percentage. And they've also got broker success trust from their customers in them, leading, measured by increased sales. So if you trust an insurer, you will give them repeat business. So that's a real time example in the insurance sector. An interesting one is a slight, for me, because I'm not rich, a more frivolous one, which is in wealth management. Wealth management is serious. We're talking about a world class US based, but world class bank from the East Coast. I won't say anymore, but they are one of the top banks in the world. Okay, is all I can say, and I'm really inspired by their leadership there because I know them. They used our data products to improve their wealth management positioning and services. The innovation, the improved returns to their clients, who are wealth clients. Um, that made for one of the most interesting stories I've ever seen on the use of Denodo data products. So when I had a look at what they were doing and I saw their presentations, etc., it was inspiring. So the important takeaway here really is what do we do? How do we help people like CFOs to fund data foundations? It's in this. It's in these examples. Values and speed, trust, reusability, real measures of outcome. So I hope that paints a picture of just how important this is.
Absolutely. And you actually led me to my next final question, which was if you had to summarize one major takeaway for CFOs, what would it be and why, especially within this financial space that we've already been talking about?
So if I have to give them one line, I would say because often all they ever get from the data team are reports. They get one report or another, and then they are drowning in reports. So my comment is this: modern finance isn't about reports. Don't worry about the reports. It's about your ability to predict, to personalize, and to prevent. The three P's. The three P's are prediction, personalization, and prevention. Prevent problems like fraud, etc. Personalize to reduce customer churn and gain the respect and the love of your customers. And then prediction is to be able to see into the future. I mean, who wouldn't like that? Who wouldn't like the ability to forecast? And that's it there, really. I mean, we've got people like Snowflakes and Databricks and all these people who are trying to satisfy them, but that missing mile, get that missing mile under control.
Wow, that was a very insightful episode, honestly. And I'm so glad that I was able to get some of these little nitty gritties out of you. And that really helps me understand not just what Denodo does, but in terms of what is the gap in the market and how it can be tapped into. And you've inspired other companies out there as well. I'm
Yes.
sure of this. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the chance to speak.
I really appreciate you coming on. Also, thank you to everyone out there for listening. We hope you took a lot away from today's episode. For further information on what we've talked about, please head on over to denodo.com. We'll be back next week with another episode in our podcast series. Until then, please make sure you subscribe to this podcast on all major platforms and follow the conversation on our socials at EN360 Tech on X and LinkedIn. And for more great daily content, please also head on over to en360tech.com.